I'm Catherine Story. Welcome to my channel, House of Story. Today I'm reviewing Tony Duquette, and if you haven't heard of him and you are a creative, you will be thrilled to know his story, and it will inspire you to fall down the rabbit hole of curios to see the work that he's done and did during his career. He was known by the New York Times as the first interior designer of the 20th century. Why? You know, I think that Tony, from what you can see from his career, he was one of the originals of upcycling and recycling, what we know today as upcycling. For him in his time, he really was so creative that he could find extraordinary things. He could turn extraordinary things into magical, coveted pieces. He would use burlap and turn it into a piece that looked like it was velvet. He would use found objects and put them in gardens, spray paint them gold, and they looked like they were antiques from France. He had a knack of mixing amazing, incredible vintage pieces, shells. He was known as Tony Abalone because he had shells everywhere you could look. He did incredible coral, beautiful chandeliers. He had this wonderful, whimsical, magical view of decorating, and it was something that they hadn't seen before him. He was actually the first designer to ever get a show in the Louvre. And when he started, he fell into the Hollywood it scene of Mary Pickford and doing movie sets and costumes for several different movies, one in particular for Vincent Minnelli. So he was, at that time, he was in with this group that, of course, they all wanted him to do their homes. And he didn't want to duplicate anything that he did, so everything was unique. He also was married to a beautiful woman who contributed a lot, and also ended up having a partner, Hutton Wilkerson, who has taken on the business. He joined him in the 70s, and they did many projects together. What I found out since actually he took over, since Tony passed away and he took over the Dondridge estate, was that actually Hutton did a lot of the remodel there. Because to appease the family, many pieces had to be sold. And so Hutton actually did a lot of the decoration, and he is a designer in himself that is worth exploring. Hutton actually lives attached to the property, and the property is just this beautiful, whimsical space with just every color you can imagine, and then ferns, like spider ferns in clamshells. His nickname was Tony Abalone. He liked to put abalone on everything. Later on in their career, Hutton and Tony actually did a jewelry collection, and what I love about it is they would never do custom. So basically they would design the jewelry, take it to the show, and even if a woman said, oh, could you change that and put an emerald there, they always said no. They just were the first to really do one of a kind and to stick to it, which, as a designer myself, it's very challenging not to be swayed by what the client wants. Tony went on to have huge acclaim in his career. His protege and business partner, Hutton Wilkerson, actually has the estate, and he had to sell many of the items to appease the family. So what I learned was he actually, a lot of what the estate looks like now is because of him. There's a beautiful pond at the bottom of this somewhat three-level property, and Hutton actually did all of that, as well as many of the sort of Asian facades that you see there. These were all things that they had just collected. So were they collectors? They must have been the types that went to flea markets and If somebody was throwing things away, they would probably go down alleys. I also read that many of the plants that are in the Doddridge estate are in pots. The reason being, Tony would go down the alleys, and anybody that was discarding pots and plants, he would grab and take to his estate. So I can imagine that whatever was in the alley, he was probably grabbing and turning into something wonderful. And if you do go to his estate, or if you look at some of the, especially of the garden, what's magical about it is there's all these little corners and capsules of different curated spaces really throughout the house. And as the sun goes down, suddenly the light will light up a space you didn't really see when it was sunny out. So it has that sort of magical quality to it. Tony was also known for his giant clamshells. That was one of his signature pieces. He actually worked a lot with the sea, with imagery from the sea. And he loved spider ferns. So the home is filled with many spider ferns. Like, if you have a spider fern, they just keep having babies. So they're everywhere. Many clamshells, beautiful curated spaces, like almost too much to see. I've been there twice, and I know I have not seen it all. New York Times called Tony Duquette the first interior designer of the 20th century. And if you look at where we are now, you can really see that he was doing sustainable, environmentally friendly design back in the 50s. And he even went so far as to do one-of-a-kind jewelry. And he didn't want to duplicate anything. He liked the organicness of just like, this is what it is, and no, we're not going to do a custom for you. So no matter what clientele asked for something in a jewelry, in a brooch, they wanted emeralds, he said, no, this is it, this is what we're doing. He went on to also design with Hutton a collection for Tom Ford at Gucci. So I hope you can see how important this interior designer is for American design. And also, if you are a designer, I know you can appreciate how he mixed, found objects with, 17th century furniture, and the Baroque and the overdoneness of, especially of his Doddridge estate. I can't speak for all of, obviously some of the estates are not as embellished as this one, but he also did Shangri-La in Hawaii. He did many different estates for her. I can't think of her name right now, but just if you do a little bit of research, you'll see why he is so important, and why you need to know him as a designer, one way or the other. There's also been an incredible Vogue fashion shoot in one of the rooms, and I think it was a couple rooms in the Doddridge estate, and Hutton actually lives next door to the property. He has a somewhat modern estate with an infinity pool, and the infinity pool is the one that actually runs into the lake that's at the bottom of the Doddridge estate. So, the inspiration is, look at the ordinary and see if you can turn it into something extraordinary. We all have, as creatives, our unique hand at what we're good at. He was good at that. He didn't have to have so much money behind him to make a career. He was just working with what was in front of him, and he was living his joy and his passion, and he turned it into such a wanted designer of that time, and definitely an icon for me. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it inspires you to look deeper into this designer, and thank you so much for watching. Please like and follow for more.